Okay guys, on this episode of What Drives You, I'm here with my friend Terri Lyne Carrington, and I'm telling you, I am so excited. Number one, because we're driving in her brand new 5 Series that she just picked up from us, but also because I'm holding her Grammy Award. Not only has she gotten 1, but she's gotten 3. Terri, you're a superstar. Not only because this car is awesome, but you are a superstar.
Oh, well, I'm a jazz musician and I don't think we consider ourselves superstars.
Well, I definitely do, because I do not know how to play any instruments, nor really know anything about it other than I love to put on music. I love all sorts of music, and I love to dance to music. But
and that's what's important. That's why we do it, to connect with other people.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Well, I think music is a great connector, really, because you're right. You know, there are so many things that music does for someone where, you know, it brings back memories, it makes memories, it brings happiness, sometimes sadness.
It heals.
It heals.
Very healing.
Very healing. Yep. And I think that there's no one in the world that doesn't have music in their life. You know what I mean? That it really, it doesn't matter if it's jazz, blues, country, rock.
Well, also everybody has rhythm, and that's a big part of music. That's of course, I think that because I'm a drummer too. Everybody uses rhythm when they walk, when they chew, when they type. Rhythm is in everything we do, when we talk. So everybody has music in them that they're using every day on some level. When we speak, our melodies can go up or down.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So can we take it back? So you are a jazz musician,
Mm-hmm.
a drummer, and a prodigy. So when you were 11 years old, was it, you discovered that you had this talent? Can you tell me a little bit about that? Like, how does that happen?
I started playing when I was 7. My father played saxophone and drums, and my grandfather was a drummer. And he passed away right before I was born. But he played with people like Fats Waller and Sammy Davis Jr., Duke Ellington when they came through Boston.
Wow.
And my father went to college down south, and he played with James Brown, Ruth Brown, people like that when he was in college. And I was the first one in our family to really, you know, make it a full-time career. And so I look at my success for, you know, both my father and my grandfather as well.
Okay, so rhythm, music, drums, instruments are all in your kind of lineage, right? Mm-hmm. So you have that. You've named off some unbelievable, impressive names. And so do you just all of a sudden kind of pick up the sticks and start to play, and then your dad says, "Hey, you're actually pretty good"?
That's exactly what happened.
Is that right?
I just asked him if I could play.
I should get a Grammy for that. So that's what happened. You just picked up the sticks.
Yeah, they were there, and it really goes to show you that when kids are exposed to things, you don't know what they'll do. I saw the drums, asked my dad if I could play them, if he would set them up, because they were in the basement. And he did, and then he knew so many musicians that when they came through town, through Boston, he would tell them, "My daughter plays, she sounds pretty good, give her a shot." And they would ask me to sit in and play with them, so I developed a reputation as a preteen, you know, jamming with B.B. King and Dizzy Gillespie and people like that, because my dad knew all these people. And so he gave me access, literally and figuratively, to the jazz stage.
Well, and I think that that's the thing, right? That he allowed you to kind of explore and to grow in your craft. Do you think that there are some people that are out there that might have some type of talent inside, but they don't think that they're as creative because they haven't had somebody that advocated for them?
Absolutely, and that happens all the time, unfortunately. It happens to people that don't have access, don't maybe even have instruments, Berklee Institute of Jazz and Gender Justice, really to address this issue, on a cultural level, and try to change that in our jazz culture so that we are more encouraging to young women. And a lot of them quit actually much earlier. They may have interest when they're young, but then they quit in high school or in college and don't go into the professional world, so the drop-off rate gets bigger each step of the way. So that's what we're trying to change.
Yeah, and so we're on our way. I should add that we're on our way to Berklee right now, and that you are doing a lot of work there in order to to get people into the fold, to give them the education, to give them the tools. And I'm really impressed by that, because I think it's one thing for us to, do the good work that we need to do for ourselves, expand our craft, but then to say, hey, I need to take this one step further, and there's a need, and there's a want, and there's a desire out there, and to be able to identify that, I think, is really important. So when you work with your students, do you kind of dig in and try to pull out the very best of them when it comes to their craft and their music?
Absolutely. I feel like everybody's different, so there's no cookie cutter approach in my book. There are some things I guess you can teach that way, basic things that everybody should know. But my approach is really trying to find what's missing, or areas that I feel they could improve, and everybody's a bit different. So I try to remain open and fluid and agile when it comes to teaching. And I've been having fun with it now for about 15 years, and really feeling a reward when I can make a difference in somebody's life. And I see that on different levels, even like with admissions and helping young people get into Berklee. I have a summer 5-week program that normally the people that are in the 5-week program, because it's an intensive, a jazz intensive, normally they get scholarships and are able to come to the college. So I really feel like I'm changing some lives, with this high school program.
That's awesome. So another question that I thought of asking you is, who inspires you musically? And maybe it's another musician, but maybe it's somebody else in your life. But who inspires you when it comes to music?
Wow, so many people have inspired me over the years. My biggest mentor on the drum kit would be Jack DeJohnette. He played with Miles Davis and Keith Jarrett and had many albums and bands of his own. And then I'd say Wayne Shorter has been a huge inspiration and mentor as well over the years, as a spiritual being and creative being. And then later years, I think, I started feeling more inclined to do whatever I could in any area of social justice, especially when it comes to gender and race. But people that do that kind of work I find very inspiring, because it's so selfless. So that's, I'd say that's it that comes to mind right now.
That's a lot of great inspiration, people of inspiration, for sure. Some names that you mentioned I'm not familiar with, but I'm going to look them up, because I too want to get inspired. I think it's great to learn about people, to see what they're doing and how they could fit into your own life. Well, we're coming into the city. This car drives really smoothly, and it's super quiet, I notice. So it's funny that you're a drummer, and usually with drummers they have big cars, that they can load up all of their drums and equipment in, but you're choosing the 5 Series. And tell me what you love about this car.
Well, when I moved to Los Angeles in 1989, I decided to only buy sedans, because I didn't want to have a car that could take drums.
You're like, no, you set up the drums, I'll drive in. Yeah.
I figured if I don't have a drum tech, or the venue can't rent the drum kit, then I guess I don't need to be there.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. You do start to get a little bit more selective as you go along in life. So, Terri, this isn't your first BMW either. You started with a 3 Series, went into a 5 Series, and then this is your second 5 Series.
This is true. Yes, I think once you drive one, you kind of
you're
stuck
hooked
with them. You're hooked. Yes.
You're hooked.
Hooked.
Yeah, there's something to be said about them. They're super luxurious, so comfortable, quiet. This big navigation that is on as well is beautiful. It connects right to your phone. I mean, you have everything at your fingertips. Do you love that, especially because you have to drive into the city every day?
I do, and this screen is a little bigger on this 2022 than the one I had before, which was the 2018.
Mm-hmm.
And the 3 Series was good for a first one. And my parents, they were having trouble getting in and out of it because it's lower and smaller.
Oh, okay.
So I knew at that point that I needed to move up.
Not a bad problem to have.
If I wanted to take them places in my car, I had to move up.
And you do.
Yes.
So here we are in the 5 Series. When you are mentoring your students, do you kind of guide them in a way, and how do you mentor them to say, hey, listen, contrary to the majority belief, you can make a living out of your music and your craft versus what you might be hearing out there, in the world, which is, hey, so and so, just stick to accounting, or something else. How do you navigate that?
Well, what I find interesting is in certain African traditions, like the griot families, the griot musicians, it's been explained to me that it has to be a calling.
Oh, interesting.
And, yes, and it's the musicians that are griots, they pass this tradition down generation to generation. There's only really 6 griot families, I believe. So,
wow.
When it was explained to me that it has to be a calling and nobody actually encourages them to play, they have to really desire it themselves, that made sense to me, because I think that the most successful musicians, it's their calling. They can't imagine doing anything else.
Wow.
And when it's that way for you and you have the talent and aptitude, then I don't think really there's any choice. I couldn't imagine doing anything else, like, since I was a kid.
Do you ever say, I don't have nothing. I have nothing creative in my brain today? Or is there too much creativity in your brain? Like,
the creativity's there all the time for the most part. The problem is process, the time and the process. I think the creativity's there for most of us, but you have to have skills to get it out.
Okay.
If I could just somehow magically put out what's actually in my brain,
mm-hmm.
then, man, that would be incredible. But the process of actually getting it out so that it's tangible for others is the part that you have to work on and figure out.
Do you ever go into school and go, wow, I am like amongst the best of the best?
Oh, absolutely. Some kids really just blow my mind, and I'm just my father actually says to me sometimes, good thing you came along when you did.
Yeah.
Like, the competition just gets greater and greater every year.
Why is that? Why does the competition get greater and greater? Do you think there's more exposure to instruments and to programs, and is that what makes it more competitive now? Or
yeah, I think that with the internet, but when I came along, I couldn't go to the internet and find anything.
Right.
So I think, it's more exposure and just more means, and everybody's doing everything faster these days.
Right.
My son, well, let me do it. Everything is just faster with technology.
Right.
They grew up with it.
Right.
And we didn't.
Does anyone ever come to you, Terri, and say, I really don't think I'm good enough? Like, is there doubt when somebody is so good? Is there doubt as well?
Yes, I think. I mean, I even have doubt. I mean, they call it Imposter Syndrome now, I guess.
Oh,
I think we all still have that because that's part of the artist's struggle. Not fully knowing if you're good enough and comparing yourself to others. That's a thing that you have to train yourself not to do. But it's something that we all, I believe, just naturally do because it's a competitive field.
All right, guys. Now where are we, Terry?
We are at the Red Room at Cafe 939, Berklee College of Music.
And as you can see, I'm still holding your Grammy.
Are you going to give it back?
No, I don't think I am. Can we just talk about the Grammy again? Just because I'm super impressed, but I really want to know. You get a Grammy. Do you get a call? Do they say, hey, get your gown, get your outfit ready, you're coming on stage? Like, what happens? Do you submit something? Like, how does that all happen?
Oh, yes, everybody has to submit their projects, and it's, hundreds of projects, sometimes thousands. And then it narrows down to who's nominated. So the entire Academy, which is a lot of voting members, they vote for who should be nominated. And then if you make the top 5, then you're nominated. And then everybody votes again for who wins.
Wow.
So you don't get a phone call necessarily, but you look online. I don't remember how it happened because I was actually nominated in 1989 before we were online. And I don't remember. I think the record company called me and told me. But nowadays we just look. We know the day it will be announced. The Academy sends out a press release, and you just look and see if your name's there.
So do you join up with friends and family and say, okay, let's click on the computer and see? Or do you just kind of say, okay, I just want to do this by myself because if I don't win, I'm a loser? Or like what does that feel like?
No, first of all, I try not to be defined by wins or losses. Because even Quincy Jones has said something to the effect of, people talk about the 50 Grammys he's won, but they don't talk about the 150 he lost. I'm making up those numbers, but the point is, we're always, it's an ebb and flow with these things. But it is an honor, to win. And the first one, that's the first one that you're holding. And goodness, how did I feel? I remember just, I really was a bit shocked, when I was nominated, because I had been nominated in 1989, and because I was so young, I thought this will happen again, or this will happen. And then, what year is that, 2011?
This says 2011.
So it took another, let's do the math, 22 years to be nominated again.
Wow.
And all that time, I sort of gave up on that.
Yeah.
And so it was for me a recognition of my entire career, all the things I had done in the first 30 years
wow.
of my career.
So this is your first. You have one that's sitting on your piano, and then where's the third one?
That one, just this past week, I donated or loaned to the Smithsonian National Museum of African American History and Culture. And the ironic part is, because when you loan those, it's for a few years, and the ironic part is the space that my Grammy and some sticks and some pictures will go in is the space that Herbie Hancock was occupying.
Oh, wow.
And he's somebody I played with for 10 years. So it feels a little bit, I don't know, like a passing of a torch in some ways.
Yeah, that's great. So tell me a little bit about the equipment that we're using. I say we. I'm not using it at all. You are.
Oh, but you will.
But I will.
Be.
I will? Oh, yes. My dream came true. The equipment that we're using, it looks so much smaller than what I typically would see on stage. So tell me a little bit about it.
Well, this is more of a typical jazz set.
Okay.
And the bass drum is an 18-inch size bass drum, and in most contemporary music, rock, R&B, hip-hop, you probably see a 22-inch bass drum, which makes the drum set look bigger. You might see more toms. These are the toms.
Okay.
You might see, more, and many more cymbal stands.
Okay.
This is a very traditional jazz setup. Actually, this drum would be missing in the most of a traditional jazz setup. It would just be
Okay.
those. And I normally play 3 cymbals over here and 2 cymbals here, but I always play the same amount of toms, which is what we have here. I switch bass drum sizes depending on the style of music.
Okay.
So when I'm playing jazz, I like to play the 18-inch bass drum. When I'm playing things that are more groove-oriented, I like to play a bit bigger bass drum. These are Yamaha drums. I endorse Yamaha drums and Zildjian cymbals and Zildjian sticks. In fact, this cymbal here is one that I designed for Zildjian. It's called the High Definition Ride, and it's always nice to see other people using it and see that Berklee has purchased a few.
So what makes that cymbal different? Is it the grooves that are on it or the size of it?
Well, it's just a process I went through with the company. Over hammering. So you see how these little circles and indentations are in there?
Right.
That's hammering. It's on the other ones, but you see it's not as much.
Oh
and
yeah,
not as
I
big.
see that.
Yeah, so I had it over hammered to make it drier and trying to go for, you know, a certain type of sound. And then lightly lathed, meaning you see how you can see the raw metal,
Right.
and then you see the shiny metal.
Yep.
So this is all shiny, so this is heavily lathed where they take the first layer off, the raw layer off,
Okay.
right? But this is lightly lathed so you can see some of the raw, and the bell is not lathed at all.
Okay.
And then the bottom is not lathed at all.
Very cool.
Either.
So the sound of that one will be significantly different than this one.
Sure, it'll be much drier.
All right.
Yeah, so this is a ride cymbal, which is the cymbal that you would use to kind of keep the pulse of
Keep
the song,
the beat
right?
going. Okay.
But this is a crash cymbal, so this is for accents.
Okay.
You don't normally ride on a crash,
Okay.
but you can crash on a ride.
Okay. Well, that makes sense even in driving, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. But
You know, the 5 Series drives you, this drives you here in the studio, but what drives you in your life? If I were to ask you that question, Terri, what drives you?
I think trying to make my imprint, you know, on the world to be as meaningful as possible, to try to help the next generation of musicians, and I'm feeling purposeful right now, especially in my life over the last 5 years, doing gender equity work.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you something. I've been definitely inspired to drive with you today and to learn more about you. I was so excited for this day to come because I knew that we would have a lot of fun and I would learn a whole lot. I certainly am honored to, you know, be in your presence and to be on your stage and to hold your beautiful award here. And I guess there's nothing left to do but then to play a little beat.